Hi everyone, my name is Steve. Today is the 30th of July 2018 and this is my slightly belated third entry in my video journal all about CBT for emetophobia. So just a quick trigger warning before I continue. If you do struggle with emetophobia, I will be talking about some topics that you may find uncomfortable and using some terms that you might not like. I do recommend, if you can, try and persevere and get through the video. Part of the CBT therapy process does involve talking about these things, so you have to learn to be comfortable with going over these topics. So in the last couple of videos I talked about my own experience of CBT, how it all started and what I've been through, and talked about the appointments that I've had so far. In the first appointment we really just went through what it is that I fear, what's going through my head at the time, and what it is that I experience. In the second appointment we started talking about behaviours, and I made a map of all of the things that I do because of this fear. So all the different actions that I might carry out, all the things that I avoid because of my emetophobia. In the third appointment we started to talk about how the fear actually exists within me and what it is that I do to respond to that fear. And we started to set some tasks which involves changing the behaviours that we talked about in the last appointment. So first of all we looked at what is it that happens when I get scared, how do I respond and how do I react to that, and how do these things actually create the behaviours that we listed in the last appointment. So my therapist asked me, what do I do when I get scared? What does that fear look like to me? What is it that actually happens? And she said, think of it as a creature, it's an animal or, some sort of being, a living thing. How does it actually exist around you? For example, on the walk to the appointment that I just had, it's about a 20-minute walk. It was quite hot, I was quite uncomfortable, and I knew that I was walking to an appointment which is a slightly uncomfortable experience. So I said that to me, in that situation, I wasn't scared, I wasn't panicking. It was like the fear was kind of walking just behind me, just a few feet back, and just following me the whole way. It wasn't attacking me, it wasn't going for me, but it was just walking behind me, and I was very aware of it. And my therapist pointed out some things in that idea, that first of all, to think of the fear as attacking you, as something that's trying to get you, is quite a dangerous way to think of fear, and it's quite a misunderstanding of how fear works inside the body. I will do another video soon that's all about the actual biology of how fear works in you, the fight or flight response, and why it exists and why it does what it does. So she said, instead try and think of that fear as a small child, maybe even a younger version of yourself. How would you respond to it then if it was kind of following you and it was quite upset and quite scared? And I said that, well, I'd see it quite differently in that sense. I would actually try to engage that fear and try to make it feel better. You want to comfort it and want it to feel okay and understand that there's nothing to be scared of. And she kind of pointed out that this is a really crucial thought process about self-compassion and being able to engage with yourself and being able to engage with your fear and almost welcome it in. You have to kind of acknowledge that fear, let it exist, and understand what it's doing to you and why it's doing that. And as you start to do that, that will make things easier. How you do that is quite confusing. It's quite difficult to think about how that works. She did give me a recommendation for a meditation process, which I'm going to look at, and I'll put a link to that in the description as well so you can have a look. It's all about learning self-compassion and being able to engage both mentally and physically with the things that you're feeling and the fears that you're having, because we do typically try and push them away and we try to get away from them, and that only makes them stronger, really. The other thing that we started to talk about was the behaviours that we'd listed in the last session. So again, that's my map of behaviours, and there's lots of things that we've added to that kind of explain what it is that I do or the things that I avoid because of the phobia that I have. And this week I've got a new sheet that's all about behaviour experiments. So what we're going to be doing is looking at the things that I do, the behaviours that I enact because of this phobia, and trying to change those and trying to acknowledge that they exist purely because of the fear, and that I can actually start to reconsider the way that I behave. One thing about emetophobia particularly is that the fear exists because of the behaviours that we inhibit. And the way that you get through that and the way that you change it is by taking those behaviours out or adding things in that you're avoiding and starting to train yourself that these aren't things to be scared of and that they're not going to be any sort of hazard to you. So we're starting out easy. One of the behaviours that I listed last week was carrying around a plastic bag, that it's always there for me just in case I think I'm going to be sick. It's available and it will help me. Now I know that that's not necessary. I've never needed it. There's never been a situation where I've needed it. So what I'm going to try and do is try to go out without the plastic bag and not take it with me. And what you have to do on this exercise here is you have to make a prediction. So what do I think will happen if I don't take a plastic bag with me? So on here I listed that knowing that I don't have it with me will make me think about that. It will potentially make me panic because I know that I don't have that remedy, that coping mechanism. And because of that, the symptoms themselves might arise. I might start to feel nauseous. Potentially the worst case scenario is that I don't have it and suddenly I am sick and I actually need it, and that would obviously make me feel worse. But over time, I would hope that I would learn that I don't need the plastic bag, that I don't need to worry about this, and that actually I'm going to be fine. And you have to rate how strongly you believe these different predictions that you've made. So how much do I believe that it's actually going to happen? I'm really going to be sick and I won't have a plastic bag with me? Not very much. It's extremely low. It never happens, so why should I believe that? Knowing that I won't have the plastic bag with me might make me panic. That's more plausible. That's quite possible that I might start to feel worried and I might start to panic. So I'd probably put that at like 60%. And the belief that over time I'll actually start to feel better. How much do I believe that on? I believe that quite strongly, 80% I would say. And then the next box is the experiment, where you say what you will do. How are you going to test it? What experiment could test this prediction? What safety behaviours will need to be dropped? And how would you know your prediction has come true? So what's the experiment? You don't take the bag with you. The safety behaviour, which is, the things that you do to make you feel safe, carrying the plastic bag. I don't need to do that. And how would I know whether my predictions have come true? Well, it's rating how I feel. It's acknowledging anything that might have gone through my head. And then you practice that, you do it, and you write down the outcomes and what you've learned from it. So I've done it a couple of times now. I've been out for a walk around town, down to the beach, around the park, and I've not taken the plastic bag with me. And the outcome was that nothing happened, shockingly. On the way out of the door, I might have suddenly thought to myself, oh, I've not got that bag with me. That's okay. It's fine. It's not something to worry about. And then you go out for the walk, you do whatever it is you're doing. You might think about other things. You might at some point think, oh, I don't have that bag with me. What's going to happen? And it's just being able to think, well, actually, I feel fine. I don't need to worry about it. It's okay. I'll just carry on. And the first time, it might not work. You might panic. You might have to come back early. Something might not go right. But the more you do it and the more you practice those things, the more it's kind of drilled into your head that actually this behaviour is not necessary. It's a safety behaviour when there's no threat. So hopefully within a week or so, I'll be able to just kind of carry on and not think about carrying a plastic bag with me. It's a fairly new behaviour, that one, for me, so hopefully it won't take too long to rewrite that idea. Obviously other things that I've got in here, on my map, things about, avoiding busy situations, avoiding public transport, being very careful with how I cook my food, not being comfortable in restaurants, things like that, and general worrying. All of these things happen, and all of these are much more ingrained, so it's going to be harder to rewrite those behaviours. But that's CBT. That's how it works. You expose yourself to your fears, learn that it's nothing to be scared of, you change that behaviour. It takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. This is just my third appointment, so we're really just getting started with this, and we'll kind of see what happens from there. So that's where I'm at. That's my first experiment in changing behaviours. There's lots more to do. There's a long way to go, but I'm feeling positive. I'm feeling nervous, but generally quite positive. That's all I've got for this week. If you do have any questions or comments, do get in touch. Hopefully, if there's anyone else out there who's going through this, hopefully you're making some progress too. But don't worry, it is hard work. It's not easy, but you'll get there. So that's everything I've got. Hopefully I'll be in touch again next week.